Let's get over. Hey you guys, welcome to another live feed. Where are you? There he is. All right, with Dr. Garrett and Holly Hajaj.
Hi everybody. Thanks for joining us today. So our topic is a special topic and close to all of our hearts in a big way. I said heart. That is a clue.
In a bad way too.
In a good and a bad way, about what we might be talking about.
Good. What?
Well,
now I may not know what our topic is, because I was under the impression it's always bad.
Well, I'll explain in a little bit as to what I mean. In the meantime, I'm going to let you take over and explain a little bit while I share our talk.
She's going to jack around on the phone for a little bit, probably do some Facebook updates, that kind of stuff.
FaceTiming.
All right, so am I going to tell them what it's on?
Does anybody know what tonight's show is on? We'll give you a hint. Sweet Deception. Oh, wait, we've got...
No, he didn't say it. I thought he said sugar.
Hi, Kel. Hi, Pandora.
Yeah, so we're going to talk about the ills of sugar and part of our Kill Whitey series.
Part of your Kill Whitey series?
So, this has been a big problem in America because I think the last season of True Blood, one of the vampires sucked blood out of a teenage boy and got instant diabetes. All right.
That wasn't one of your best ones. I think we can do better.
That was a pretty good one. What about the new slogan for IHOP? Can we do that?
No, not yet. Don't use up all the jokes. He wants to use up all the jokes in the beginning. Don't use up all the jokes in the beginning. Here is my question for you guys. What is your favorite sweet treat? What is your biggest temptation? What is your biggest sweet love? Your best friend, the thing that you run to when you are at your worst.
Meth.
Type that in.
Oh. Does it have to be sugar related? Probably would help.
It would kind of help, but I'll be happy if there's a response.
Now, if you're watching this later, after it's recorded, still type it in.
Yeah, let us know.
It won't do anything, but it'll be great. All right, so we have sugar's a huge topic.
Huge.
Huge. So what's really interesting, I'm going to say a few things first while you're dicking around on that. So
hold, please.
What was really interesting is I read this book called Eating History. That's right, I read a book, right? From Texas, and I read a book. So, in that book, it was pretty cool because it talks about the kind of evolution of things that we are just accustomed to that's everywhere now. Like, the idea of, like, we used to not have fast food. We used to not have sodas. We used to not have sugar. We used to not have national candy, these kind of things. And so I really liked the book because it was pretty amazing about that. Because you just kind of grow up with this and you just think everybody, everything that we're exposed to, it's always kind of been here, right? So one of the things was about sugar. So we said, 1910, that's when America started really getting kind of fat from sugar. But interestingly enough, that sugar has not been a part of many cultures for forever. And so, like, even, I think it was Henry III, back then, sugar was only for, like, the rich of the rich, right? It was imported. You had to be super wealthy to have sugar. And Henry III ordered 3 pounds of sugar, and they couldn't come up with it. There was not enough sugar to accumulate to create 3 pounds of sugar for him. So, take that to today, where 3 pounds, that's like what, last week's meals, something like that. The average American's daily kind of consumption. So when you look at that kind of stuff, it was I think the 1600s when they started getting sugar from beets for the first time. But then it took 300 years before that became commercialized.
Before it turned into the big gulp.
That's right. There was no big gulp in 1900.
I'm talking about from a long time ago to now.
That was called Ye Biggeth Gulp. There's old English drink.
I'm talking about
Oh, I know what you're saying.
Okay.
So,
He's only he's 4 centuries behind. This is going to be a long one tonight.
So then in 1901... no?
Okay.
All right, so 1900...
He really is going to say 1900.
Yeah, there's like 300 years later after beet sugar, right?
All right?
Sugar became a staple of the European and American diet. And so up until then, it went from an absolute luxury, like you had to be super rich to even afford sugar because it had to be imported. Then 300 years later, everybody has it in their tea. And then it was about 1940s maybe, it became in everything. And so we started seeing lots and lots of sugar to the point where we caused a sugar storage disease called diabetes type 2, or part 2, right? Sequel's always better than the first diabetes. And then today we consume about 150 pounds of sugar a year. So we went from 0, and I always I love quoting this story because I was reading a story to my daughter called Robinson Crusoe. You may have heard about it. It's a book. Right? She used to work at Barnes & Noble. So she'd be bawling on the books. You ever heard of that one? No.
Yeah.
No, you haven't.
Sometimes
it's not in the vampire
sometimes
section.
I feel like it's worth it to answer, and then sometimes it's not worth it to answer.
It's not.
That's why
it's not part of the Twilight series.
sometimes I just plead the fifth.
Have you ever been that part of the store? The old stuff. So I was reading that story, and it talked about he dreamt about the sweet things of his homeland, and he said peas and carrots. Peas and carrots. Just not paying attention now. You mentioned Twilight series, and she's see.
You know who I'm paying attention to? I'm paying attention to our people.
What's that?
That is who I'm paying attention
What's
to.
that dude's name in Twilight?
Well, you blah 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 1900 1500.
She's talking trash.
Real quick though, can I interrupt?
Yes.
All right.
By all means.
Before you get back to 1572.
How did we get to 1902?
So, just real quick, I just want to shout out some of our friends' sweet treats. We've got dark chocolate from Kel. That's kind of a good one, right?
Kinda.
Chocolate cake, that's an even better one. I like cake without the frosting. Does anybody else just like the cake? That's me.
I hate the frosting.
I'm kind of a carb a complex.
I mean, I don't eat cake.
Wait.
I've never eaten cake.
Jessica says popcorn, ice cream, and Rice Krispie treats.
All mixed together?
Yes. I like it. We've got Lissa says she tries not to keep anything in her house except fair trade dark chocolate, good for you. But she does mention xylitol lemon bars. Interesting. We will get into sweeteners maybe a little bit later in the talk.
Yeah, let me write xylitol.
Xylitol. Heather, yes, it is a big struggle cutting out the sugar. That's why we're doing the talk. Thank you guys for joining us. Thank you for watching. Keep posting comments and questions. Let's get back to our history lesson.
So back in 1902, now I went all the way to modern century, man.
All right.
So that book was really cool because the idea is that we just consume astronomical amounts of sugar now. But what's in the 1990s? See, I jumped.
Okay, that's good.
390 years.
Yeah.
So in the 1990s, one of the things that really changed in our food was that we had all the tech stocks going up like crazy during that time. And so a lot of the, I guess, stock traders were looking at stocks that were not moving very well, and they looked at the food industry, and they found that they actually had pretty good return on investment, but they could do better. And so they put lots and lots of corporate pressure, or not corporate pressure, but financial pressure, I guess, stock owner pressure on the companies to make more money. And so one of the things that they did was they started adding sugar to foods and recipes that we never had sugar in. So you started seeing sugar turn up in all kinds of places that you wouldn't normally see it. And so then today, it just becomes the normal. And I think the latest study shows that Americans consume so much sugar that it takes a quarter to a half a teaspoon of sugar added to water before they would even notice there's sugar in the water. Did you know that?
Interesting.
That's church. All right. Are these facts so dope you can't handle them?
I might.
Did you like history class?
I did like history class. Well, and while we're talking about just this issue, like what we're talking about, if you have burning questions, if you're sitting here going, Dr. G, talk about this in your mind, please type that in.
Yeah.
Type that in.
They can't be beard-related questions.
Right, it should be relevant to the discussion.
Do you like fruit?
Also, by the way, will you please share our talk with your friends, especially those who might be struggling with a sugar-correlated illness like diabetes or heart disease, or who are just struggling with sugar as an addiction or trying to work on their diet. Please share our talk. I'm done.
So what's the new slogan for IHOP?
I don't know, Dr. G. What is the new slogan for IHOP?
So IHOP, think of that, like it's American, right? If you go in there now, it's just like dessert city. It's not like breakfast, right? But the new slogan is IHOP because I lost the other leg to diabetes. You can laugh if you want to.
I could laugh at that. It's only that I heard it maybe more than once. But if you guys are laughing, throw out some LOLs.
I think I made up the joke. That's patent pending. All right, so there's lots of times, or lots of articles about how the addiction of sugar, and they said that and how toxic it is for us, like the detriments to the body, of course. They said that sugar is the new nicotine, and then there's other articles that sugar is more addicting than crack cocaine, and you know, sugar doesn't make you as thirsty as crack. Have you found that to be true?
What? I'm reading comments while you're talking. It is so hard. There's no such thing as multitasking. We had a show on this.
We talked about this in meditation group. You were switch tasking.
I have to read comments to respond to our people.
You're not even paying attention to the actual program that's going on. This is bad.
So we do have a question. Why is sugar so darn addicting? Oh, and thank you, Valerie, for calling that a horrible joke. Thank you. Can we boot people off? Is there a way to boot that? I feel like maybe I should say it again later and have the timing better and less judgment over here, and it would go off a lot better. That's my middle name. Okay.
All right. So, why is it addicting?
Why is it so addicting? Why is sugar so addicting?
So, sugar works on your neurotransmitters in the same kind of receptor mechanisms that things like crack cocaine would work on. And when it does that, it boosts a whole bunch of hormone called dopamine, or I guess it would be a neurotransmitter if it's in the brain. Outside the brain, we'll call it hormone. But then that dopamine makes you feel doped or good. That's how all addiction works. I can't think of a good joke. So that's how all addiction works. So whether it's food addiction with wheat, food addiction with dairy, which both have morphine in there, that then increase dopamine, then creates an addiction. But or it's sugar, or it's meth, or heroin, or cocaine. I need to do more drugs because I can't even think of drugs. But
that surprised me. Usually he's right on with the drug references.
I feel like I'm letting you guys down. So when you raise that dopamine level up, you feel awesome, right? Then your body's natural mechanism is called negative feedback. So if you keep it raised up, your body will then make less or down-regulate it. And so then that next hit of sugar or the next donut doesn't quite work as well as it did before. And so then you see people over a generation or decade or maybe 2 decades where one Dr. Pepper was enough for them to like just clean the whole entire house, get them all jacked up with all that sugar. And then
now they need a case.
Yeah. And then often they can drink 24-pack and then just fall asleep. And that's because as dopamine is artificially elevated through the sugar, it's then down-regulated by the body, and it tries to take more and more to get it back up to where it used to. But there's a process in the brain through the thalamus where we desensitize the brain to that sugar, and then it's the same as someone who does meth or coke or something like that, where they start with a little bit, next thing you know, they're snorting it off a big table with a big old machine gun in the south of Florida. Yeah. And then they say,
I've been there.
do you know the quote?
No.
Say hello to my little friend.
Yeah, no.
No? Okay.
It's still lost on me.
It's Scarface. So, it wasn't Scarface's fault. It was the addiction, right? So it changes the actual physiology of your brain. And when you do like a functional MRI, you can actually watch the blood flow to that part of the brain called the thalamus. And whether someone uses cocaine, alcohol, or food, like sugar, it causes the same downregulation and literally shuts the blood flow down to those areas so they can no longer receive as much sensation of pleasure from that. So what happens then for sugar is people tend to eat lots and lots and lots and lots and lots more sugar to try to feel like the memory of how they did with their first line of sugar.
Yeah.
Line of sugar. All right. So
okay.
Yeah.
So yeah. So I hope that answers our question about why it's so addicting. We've got other great questions. We have got, there's morphine in dairy. Yes, there is morphine in dairy. We talked about that 2 talks ago, too.
Yeah.
If you'd like more on that, watch our talk from 2 weeks ago.
Just call me moron.
No. Yeah, no, you did. Okay, so how soon after quitting all the sugars would your body go back to normal?
That's a good question. So, behavioral-wise, like behavioral restoration, post-sugar addiction, that sounds legit. If it's gone quite a while to where it's actually affecting the thalamus, then you're usually talking like 6 months to recover that kind of brain function. But if you say, well, like in kind of lifestyle practice, is basically what we do is we try to balance out that dopamine naturally, so then you don't need or crave the sugar to have that same dopamine response. And when you do that, when you use that through lifestyle, you change over, then what you see is that people's neurochemistry normalizes a lot quicker. So if somebody gets off meth and their thalamus is downregulated as far as the blood flow, it takes 6 months to get half that back. But they haven't done anything else to help improve that. So within lifestyle medicine, one of the things that we do is you can artificially bump that up with B vitamins. And if you then say, well, what about fermented foods that produce B vitamins, beans and greens that promote vitamins, like B vitamins, and your good bacteria in your gut makes B vitamins, then you feel really healthy and your dopamine is balanced out a lot faster. And then you don't have those lulls after quitting sugar like you used to. Because some of the studies, even they talked about how, just like if you quit any drug, you have all these kind of side effects that come after it. And that's the same thing you see with sugar addiction. Somebody's really just jacked up on sugar, which is like every single American. Then when they stop eating all that sugar, they should feel miserable. But there are things you can do to ameliorate that misery and keep the brain function up while you're kind of restoring and regenerating that brain, blood flow to that thalamus. And restoring dopamine levels.
Yeah. We had a question, too, about sweeteners.
Yes.
So, what do you recommend? There's a lot of them out there. Someone mentioned xylitol earlier.
Yeah. So that's a good question.
What are your thoughts on sweeteners, artificial sweeteners?
Well, let's start with the real ones. So, there's 3 sugars that you should be fine with. And that's honey, maple syrup, and molasses. And those are all chock full of antioxidants, vitamins, minerals, and the satiation of sweet is right where it should be, as it has since the dawn of man. Then you have things like stevia, which would be the few natural sweeteners that we have that's not technically glycemic or caloric. There you go. And stevia, I think, is like 100 or 300 times more sweet than sugar. And what that then says is when I eat to satiate or be satisfied, it's here with honey and maple syrup and molasses. But now with stevia, it takes this much to satiate me. And what happens is people then overconsume to satiate that part of the brain and bounce those neurotransmitters out to feel good. And even though the stevia doesn't have calories, people will get fatter eating that on or consuming that on a regular basis.
So it still has an effect on the blood sugar?
Mm-hmm.
How are they getting fatter? Because of calories?
Yeah, because they eat more calories otherwise. So it's that classic, I'll have a number 7 with a Diet Coke.
Well, and then also, if it's sensitizing you to that type of sugar taste, aren't you then going to crave even more sugar in general?
You will, because you'll try to satiate. Your taste buds change very rapidly, and so if you keep consuming those things, then your taste buds become acclimated to that. But if you revert back to the old way, then your taste buds will revert back to sugar is sweet, or sorry, honey is sweet, maple syrup is actually sweet.
It is possible. This is possible.
Yeah.
It is possible to be satisfied with foods that have very little sugar or very little salt.
So the way you switch that, because the goal is sugar, salt, fat. That's how you get brain addiction. All those occur very rarely in nature. And so if something's low sugar, it's high salt, high fat. If it's low salt, it's high sugar, high fat. If it's low fat, it's high sugar, high salt. So the way that you break away from that cycle is through spices and herbs. Basically, flavor your stuff to where you're getting that delicious taste without just being a sugarholic.
Yeah.
So,
I don't know if you were going somewhere, but I've got, where could I find good local honey? What about maltitol and coconut sugar?
All right, so mannitol, sorbitol, any of those OLs are sugar alcohols. Those you want to stay away from because they typically will cause all kinds of gut problems, right? So those aren't real. We made those. Then you have things, or even erythritol, which is from corn, right? Genetically modified corn usually. Then you have things like straight up fake sugars like aspartame, neotame, acetyltame, sucrose, sucralose, or sorry, not sucrose, sucralose. What else? Oh, Splenda. And those are very harmful. The aspartame, neotame, acetyltame that you find all the time, those actually convert back to formaldehyde at 87 degrees. So we took coal tar, made benzene, and then made formaldehyde, then made aspartame. But then it converts right back to formaldehyde at 87 degrees. So once they hit your blood, you're drinking formaldehyde, and that's how we created that new epidemic of diseases in 1984 with fibromyalgia and chronic fatigue.
Okay.
So those are absolutely dangerous. They destroy your immune system, cause cancer, all kinds of horrible things.
Okay. What about coconut sugar or brown rice syrup, if somebody's asking?
So, then you have all these syrups. Now the wheat, and let's see, there's turbinado and that kind of stuff too. So, those are usually what are called health food store junk food. Yeah? Health food store junk food. So, they're crap. I mean, coconut sugar is just sugar. Very little medicinal value. Same thing with any of the syrups. They're just high glycemic sugars.
But it's not like they would be quite as harmful as the...
No, they're just as bad, yeah.
Oh, really? As the artificial sweeteners?
Well, no. So it just depends. So, like, one of my friends one time said, we went to the movies, and I asked what kind of drink he wanted, and he said, I'll take a Diet Dr. Pepper. And I said, whoa, you're better off getting a Dr. Pepper and losing your toes to diabetes than what Diet Dr. Pepper's going to do to you.
This brings up a good point. This is one of our questions for you guys. Which is better or worse, a diet drink or a sugar drink?
Yeah.
So the lesser of the two evils, you're saying, is the actual sugar drink.
Yeah, it's better to be fat and in a wheelchair than it is to just feel miserable all the time where your brain's not working. And
even if you're diabetic?
It's all screwed. It's like getting stabbed in the heart or shot in the heart. You're just screwed.
Best
to
avoid it. Best
to
avoid it.
Don't ever do the artificial sugars.
Yeah.
Now, what about xylitol? Xylitol sounds like sorbitol and mannitol.
That's part of the sorbitol and erythritol.
No,
right.
It's not.
It's not the same?
No. It's a glyconutrient sugar.
What?
And so it literally improves your immune system.
What?
And so it's actually pretty good for you.
What?
I know.
But it doesn't fall into the big three. Can anybody name the big good three, the three good sugars.
That's West Side.
That Dr. G talked about at the beginning of our sweeteners discussion. Can anybody name those? The good three.
The good three, yeah.
Please name those. We're just trying to get that to seat in the good old noggin there.
See, Kendra knows
Hopefully it's not full of sugar.
Kendra knows what I'm talking about. It's all crap. Which is what we're going to talk about next week.
So ideally, we really want to try to back away from anything super extra sweet. Back away,
right.
Even from the good three.
Yeah, because you want to get to that Robinson Crusoe mentality of my food tastes sweet because my food is sweet because of naturally occurring sugars that's in the food. And so you want to taste a carrot and say, man, that tastes good. But what we do is we change those taste buds to where we just depend on sugar. So honey, syrup, and molasses. Kendra.
Yeah.
And who?
We got
Jessica?
it. There's a maple syrup in there.
Yeah.
So honey, maple syrup, and molasses.
Nice.
Okay.
And Valerie.
Good job, everybody.
You know what you win? Nothing.
You win your health.
Bragging rights.
That is what you win.
That's right. Well, so listen to this. My generation, Generation X, is because of sugar, is not supposed to outlive our parents for the first time in history. Right? So I'm hoping my parents die young. My dad already died. So, I got 10 more years and I'll have him beat. He died of type 2 diabetes, right? Lost toes, feet, ankle, below the knee, above the knee, and then stroked out and died. So, or through an embolism and died. So sugar got my daddy. Sugar tried to kill my daddy.
Please don't.
We gotta go kill sugar.
Sugar daddy joke.
Sugar
Please
daddy.
don't make a sugar daddy joke.
I do not see sugar here. I do not see sugar here.
Okay.
So then, xylitol is fine. Xylitol should be okay. But again, don't add it if you don't have to. You really just don't want to add those sugars so you have naturally occurring sugars and you desensitize your tongue for it.
Yeah. And this is a process, too. At least it was for me. It was starting small.
Yeah.
It was starting with something attainable for me, like getting rid of one thing like soda.
Yeah.
If you're going to start somewhere with getting rid of sugar in your diet, that's an easy place to start without adding additional supplements or vitamin B, things like that. So those are just some of my thoughts at this moment.
And know this ahead of time. If your husband gives up sodas, he'll lose like 50 pounds in a week.
Just that.
If you give up if the women give up soda, they'll probably gain a pound. But you'll be better off for it. But you hear this over and over. My husband, blah, 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 blah. And then I gained weight. Maybe he's donating it to her. He's probably dripping, like, when you're asleep, dripping little bits of soda in your mouth.
He's just shaking it on you at night so that it just bleeds into your skin.
Put sugar in your lotion.
Okay, so can anybody name some of the health problems that sugar is correlated with? Can anybody just start naming those out? Throw those out. What do you know? We've already talked about a couple of them.
Yeah. And while you guys do that, I have a sugar problem for Hajaj.
He's a sugar problem? What do you mean?
If it's a math question, can you do it?
Whoa. Okay. I graduated magna cum laude. He's always giving me this type of stuff. I had straight A's in trig. Okay? Maybe I didn't get to calculus yet, but that's just because I decided not to.
That's mad props.
And go.
Bragging. Bragging. All right. If John has 50 candy bars.
50 candy bars.
And after 2 days, he only had 4 left. What does John have?
You mean how many candy bars does he have? Oh, what does he have? He has, it's 50 minus 4. That's 46.
God dang it. That's not the joke.
I know. You're supposed to say no. He has...
You didn't plan this very well. No, he has diabetes.
All right. One day we'll get better on the planning. He blames me for that, and that is just flat out an injustice.
You really screwed me on this one, George Costanza. Damn it.
Hey, a couple of people already got it. Diabetes. He has diabetes.
The diabetes.
Yes, good. So, Kendra, diabetes, heart disease, Alzheimer's.
Oh, yeah. That's a good one.
Obesity, heart problems, arthritis. We didn't talk about arthritis.
We might as well just say America. America!
So, yeah, inflammation. Yeah. I'm going to throw a couple in there. Aging.
Yes. There's an even better one called age. Advanced glycation end products.
Ooh, that's yes. Right. That's a good one, too.
So that's the way it ages you from the inside, destroying blood vessels, nerves, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
What about, what does it do to the liver? Does anybody know? So it used to take some, hey, I said Kinder's America, right? In America, it would take 35 years to cause cirrhosis of the liver, or fatty liver disease. Did I say that right? It takes 35 years? Yeah. But now, in America, it only takes 5 years to cause non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. So one of the courses I took through Harvard was non-alcoholic fatty liver disease and NASH, non-alcoholic steatohepatitis. And I was blown away because I'd seen so many patients that had fatty liver, but no reason. They didn't have hepatitis. They weren't shooting up in the bathrooms at the rest stop. They didn't what hepatitis? What else? Oh, they weren't alcoholics. And so it didn't make any sense. And so once I did that course, I was like, holy crap, this is what's going on with all these patients. Everybody has these fatty livers because of their food, especially sugar, not metabolizing through the liver too much, or metabolizing and damaging the liver, and then that damage is replaced by fat. And what's crazy is you can cut out 60% of your liver, give it to someone you like, and it'll regenerate, right? But our diet now can overwhelm the liver so much it can't do that. And it even causes cirrhosis of the liver, and you will die just because of what you eat. And that's like we said before, is in 2006, the American diet became the leading cause of preventable death, and much of that is attributed to things like sugar.
How do you tell if you have fatty liver, Brianna's asking?
Oh, I can't think of a good joke. I guess I have to be serious. You get a sonogram will show you.
Okay. So fatty liver is also another issue. What about I love this stat. You told me this in one of our first talks, the stat about how it lowers the immune system. Yeah,
so a lot of the stuff we do with patients is reversing autoimmune diseases. And one of the things I always tell them from the beginning is the way that you cause the T-cell dysregulation that leads to all autoimmune conditions is through suppressing T-cells, and the major way you're doing that is through sugar. So like 1 teaspoon of sugar, 4 grams, is enough to suppress the immune system for 30 minutes, but the average soda can suppress it for a whole day. And if you think about the average child by 15 years old now consumes 800 sodas a year, they should all have autoimmune diseases as well. And
sick all the time, not being able to fight viruses.
Yeah.
Bacterial infections, not just autoimmune, but just basic health.
Did you say nacho?
Not
just.
Just.
Okay.
He was just thinking of nachos, I think.
Nachos. You know how to make nacho cheese?
I don't know how to make that because I don't know how to answer that because I'm paying attention to our audience.
So, that's true. So the other side to that is if T cells are dysregulated to where they can't correctly identify self-antigen tissue, then they also don't find cancer antigens, and then you end up with cancer. So cancer, autoimmune, same side, same thing, no, different sides of the same coin. There you go. And that takes us to the new stat.
That, actually, the cancer thing, that was a surprise to me, recent surprise. Did anybody else know that it's correlated with cancer?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think most people do. But how much is really impressive.
Thanks.
How many cancers a year just due to sugar?
So sugar is not your friend.
That's not an answer. Don't be ducking out of this magna cum laude.
Hey, I was magna cum laude in the liberal arts.
At Wichita State?
Exercise science.
Was that at Wichita State?
Stop it. All right.
Couldn't get in KU?
Oh, you're so wrong. Okay.
All right. So how many? Do you remember?
I don't remember the question. All I know is that we were talking about cancer, and then you said you were going to talk about something else.
It's 100,000.
Okay.
100,000 cancers are just due to sugar alone.
Wow.
Attributed just to sugar alone. Now, most of them are sugars are part of it, but these are just sugar. And it was like 19% of breast cancers were just due to sugar as the main corollary of that.
So it may taste good going down. In the short term, it's amazing. I'm not going to lie, but in the long term,
Well, I did.
do we really want these kind of health problems? It's just something to think about.
Well, you know, as hormones dip, people don't like that. So then they use sugar to try to feel better as their whole life is crashing around them. Instead of just balancing your hormones. Naturally.
Says this talk sucks. I'm sorry.
I'm not. I blame everyone else. This talk sucks. Is that because you want sugar?
I think so.
This is kill whitey, man. White sugar, gluten, dairy. It's everything that America's based on. This is these last three talks is every holiday or every birthday party.
It is.
Yeah?
It's every birthday party. And
Wheat, glaze it with sugar, and then have a side of sugar.
dip
dairy.
it in milk.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's not the end of the world. It is really hard, but it's not the end of the world. You just have to know what to do, which is step one, which we'll talk about here in a little bit. Step one, know what to do, and then know how to do it, or figure out how to do it. That's the biggest gap between people who make changes. It's knowing how to make those changes. People who start with the know-how to the actual doing. That's the biggest gap that most people experience from non-health to health. I don't know if that sounds right or if I'm verbalizing it right, but
I think I would change of mind.
So we know how to do it, and then figuring out the actions.
You know, I'm always quoting what I learned at Harvard, but you know, some of my best information, but it's contradictory to this. And I think maybe we should go that direction. When I went to Trump University, I learned that the sugar industry is vital for our economy.
I think I just threw up a little bit in my throat.
I got a doctorate from Trump University, okay? And they taught me that sugar is a sustainable part of our economy. We can't disrupt it. It's free trade.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right.
Thank you, Kendra. Look what Kendra wrote.
She said congratulations.
Fruits, veggies, nuts, seeds, berries, legumes, and greens.
Nice. That's what I'm talking
She
about.
knows her stuff.
Someone be listening.
Yeah.
All right.
So, please
Are you looking at mine? This whole time you've been copying off my page?
He is so paranoid.
Magna cum laude.
Suspicious.
Who's the person sitting next to you that tied with that?
I set the curve. I set the curve, you. Okay, so we've talked about what have we talked about? Have we talked about grains?
Yeah, so grains are sugar.
We had
right?
someone ask about grains earlier.
So, like we said before, when we do gluten-free, most times people are just eating Wonder Bread without gluten in there. So, sugar, if you take sugars and you bind them together with oxygen, you get carbohydrates. And then you keep going and going and going, you can create a long carbohydrate chain, right? So, if you take that Wonder Bread and mash into a ball, yeah, and then eat it on Saturday mornings in front of the cartoons.
Like we did.
Not the Snorks, not G.I. Joe. So then and then Kung Fu Theater was after that. So you eat it, and all those long chains of sugar bound to oxygen break down, and then that's one big ball of sugar, which I think that's why I liked to do that when I was a kid.
You just needed it dipped in milk or chocolate. Then you would have had the
And who was it? It was at our meditation? No? Not meditation group. Oh, it was after that we went to Beautiful Day Cafe, and we were talking about kind of like stuff we grew up with, and someone brought up the take white bread and you put butter on it and sprinkle sugar on it. And then we talked about mayo sandwiches and that's what.
Or what about sugar cereal doused in 1,400 spoonfuls of refined white sugar on top of it in milk? That's a trifecta too.
That's right.
Yeah.
So it's sugar and sugar. So like if you think of pancakes, you take flour, which becomes sugar, and you pour syrup on there, which is sugar, and then you eat your sugar with the sugar, and then you say, "Why do I have anxiety all day?"
Yeah.
Right.
So I have a thought, which we didn't talk about in our planning, but we talked about this the other day. How do you lower your blood sugar? And we talked about 3 different ways of lowering your blood sugar. Can we talk about that? Mm-hmm. Nutritionally.
I forgot.
So if you eat fiber.
Oh yeah, okay.
If you eat fiber with a fruit, which we would call a sugar or any sugar, right? At all, right? If you eat fiber will bind to that sugar in your body.
80% of that sugar. That's right.
This is what I need you here for, the expert.
It's truth.
So that's one of them. Can you explain a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so when you eat fruits, so people say, "Oh, I can't eat fruit because it's full of sugar." But the reality is that 80% of all that sugar in that fruit or vegetable is going to bind to the fiber that you don't digest and make fructooligosaccharides, which then feeds your gut bacteria, which then makes B vitamins, which make you healthy and happy and energetic. And then that makes butyrate, and then butyrate feeds your DNA polymerase, and DNA polymerase edits out mutations, which it does 60,000 times per cell.
Whoa, slow down.
Per day.
Slow down.
I was going to... Okay.
Not everybody in our talk has gone to Harvard.
I just was on campus.
So what we're saying is fiber is one way to lower the blood sugar in your diet.
Yes. So then the other one
is...
I'm still trying to think of the third one.
Bacteria, probiotics.
No.
You told me the probiotics bacteria would eat up the sugar.
Mm-mm. Well, it does in the kombucha and stuff, but the acids it makes like 20 different acids, including acetic acid. Those acids will bind to sugars that are in that food the same as fiber.
So then it is true that if you consume probiotics or you have a good, nice, diverse microbiome,
that's right. Yeah.
It's going to help lower your blood sugar.
That's
the
true.
third one...
Oh, wait.
Okay.
So the University of Arizona pulled up these old studies from the 80s, and it showed that taking 2 teaspoons of acid, like acetic acid or kombucha or apple cider vinegar, 2 minutes, so 2 teaspoons, 2 minutes before you eat, was more effective than metformin in lowering blood sugar.
Wow.
Yeah. And metformin depletes B12, which then makes you tired and depressed and increases your cardiovascular disease, which then makes you have a heart attack, which is why you took it in the first place. But that worked really well. So then the University of Arizona was like, how do we not know about all this nutritional research? So then they just replicated the research and found out it worked the same. So
fiber, probiotics, and the last one, it's common for those of you who have done any sort of diabetes training or education, protein.
Yeah.
I know you don't like that one, but protein slows down the digestive process. So I'm speaking of protein like almonds.
Okay, I like that.
I already know how he thinks. He's thinking I'm talking about a side of beef. I'm not talking necessarily about a side of beef, just... What?
The backside's the rump steak.
Thank you for that
comment. I learned that on a field trip with my kids at the farm.
So, if you consume, let's say, almonds or nuts...
Oh, I see where you're going with this.
Then you're going to slow down the digestion and the assimilation of the blood sugar, the glucose in your body. And you're not going to spike your glucose quite as fast or as high.
Okay, that's true.
Thank you.
I don't want it to be true, but it's true.
So, there's 3 different ways to combat high blood sugar.
The 2 first ways are better.
Okay.
What about sugar-coated almonds? Oh, okay, so let's put that to use.
Okay.
So if you take an iron skillet, you take pecans, because that's the right way to say it, pecan, and you take the pecans, put it on an iron skillet, and then you drizzle a little bit of maple syrup, grade B, which is better, on those, roast those, and then sprinkle a little tiny bit of cinnamon maybe on there, then put it on non-wax parchment paper, let it cool down. Friggin' awesome.
And
it's protein.
You balanced it out with a plant-based protein.
That's right.
Nice.
Solving problems here.
Now, if you're having a bigger problem than this, or you're just really, really, really struggling with cravings, Dr. Garrett has some suggestions for that as well. Do you know what those are?
Okay. So I think one of them would probably be like Gymnema sylvestre. And that's a really interesting one that we use with people with sugar addiction, because Gymnema sylvestre, you can buy it at the health food store, and typically what it does is when you consume it, it desensitizes your tongue to the taste of sugar. You didn't think I knew, did you?
I knew that you knew, but I was just wondering why you're hesitating.
You thought I got lost.
No. Well.
So with Gymnema sylvestre, you should be able to eat sugar after that and be like, meh. Like that, like a millennial, right? About everything in life. Yeah, right? So, you want to get that millennial response. Hey, I never finished my tirade about the lifespan lost and all that stuff.
Right.
Damn it. All right. So the other one is Dopa mucuna, which is the active ingredient is Mucuna perennens, which is from velvet bean.
These are both supplements that you can take, yes.
Yeah. It's also found in high doses in fava beans, right? So I will eat her brains with Chianti and fava beans. What's that from?
I'm not even going to talk about it.
Silence of the Lambs.
There's no place for Silence of the Lambs.
Silence of the Lambs is how I learned about dopamine through fava beans. When you study clinical nutrition like I do, you find it everywhere, even in horror movies. Okay, so Dopa mucuna is super dope because it is full of L-Dopa, which is dope, and then that L-Dopa across the blood-brain barrier, that's pretty dope, and then it'll go to your mesencephalon, to your substantia nigra, within the mesencephalon, of the medulla oblongata, and create...
You've got 5 seconds to finish that.
excess dopamine, so you feel doped. And so what happens with that is you feel great, so you don't crave things to feel great.
Excellent. Excellent. So, does anybody have any questions about that?
Especially if it pertains to the medulla oblongata.
Wish we were all physicians, but we're not.
Physicians wishing. All right.
Okay.
So, Dopa mucuna is a really good one. Gymnema sylvestre. But really, if you start eating mostly fruits and vegetables, like people don't need the coffee, they don't need the sugar, they don't need the wheat and dairy. Very quickly, most patients just don't need it. Like they think it's going to be so hard, but most of them should be okay with that. All we do is we use those things to try to cope with a lifestyle that is inconsistent with life and longevity, and we just feel like crap. Nobody wants to feel like crap, so then they just abuse food.
Yeah, it's self-medication.
That's right.
Yeah. And my phone is dead, otherwise I would type those in for you. We can type those in. Gymnema.
Oh.
G-Y-N-E. G-Y-M-N-E. Gymnema. M-A.
M-A.
Sylvestre. S-Y-L-V-E-S-T-R-A.
It's freaking sweet. That's
and then
awesome.
I don't know how to spell the Dopa mucuna.
Dopa. Oh, so Dopa mucuna is the name of the product. D-O-P-A. Dopa. And then M-U-C-U-N-A RKC3PO. No, that's wrong.
I promise that sometimes he is actually helpful.
Dopa Macuna Matata.
It's not at this moment, but if you'll just breathe for a little bit, which is what I do, you'll get through it.
Pandora says, I need coffee. I don't know how many people are eating sugar while they're watching this.
Oh, I know. How many people are eating? Oh, that is true. Yeah. I'll bet.
How many people are literally eating a candy bar while they listen to this?
Have we covered everything?
I once gave a talk about Supersize Me in class, and we talked about all the horrors of the whole movie, and then I went to McDonald's afterwards. I didn't tell anyone.
I believe you.
Nobody knows.
Now they
Just
do.
Us.
Now they do. Does anybody have any last hot button questions?
Oh,
We've got about 10 minutes.
10 minutes. So, one thing is, talking about the damage of sugar. So sugar destroys the capillaries, which is why diabetes ends up people losing toes and feet and legs like my dad did, or losing arteries to their renal or to their kidneys, which then leads to kidney failures, which leads to 6 hours in dialysis 3 times a week. It's what destroys the capillaries in the eyes and they go blind. It's the same thing that they lose the capillaries in the brain, which then ends up causing strokes or mini strokes or TIAs and stuff like that. Vascular dementia, yeah. And so diabetes is this kind of silent, slow killer. Most people worry about the heart attack or the stroke, but really it's losing the toes and the fingers and the kidneys and that stuff that just sucks. You may survive it, but it sucks. It really sucks.
Because the damage is done.
That's right.
Yeah.
So you can, only every cell in your body is just days old to maybe up to 10 years old. So you can always help replenish that or repair most of that tissue, but you have to be very, very aggressive about it, and you have to also stop eating astronomical amounts of sugar like everybody else. And there's 50 names by which we call sugar. So that would be another good question, is like, how many people know other names by which they would find sugar on a label? So if you look at like Cheetos, it'll say sugar one time in there, but it'll list 7 other names for sugar. So even what's crazy is like glucose is what we call sugar in America, but dextrose is what you'd call sugar or glucose in Europe. But some labels will have the American and the European name, and just instead of just calling it sugar.
Anything with an OSC at the end.
That's true, yeah. But even like, so maltodextrin or maltodextrose. Or dextrose, galactose, those kind of things.
We might be able to find a list. Do you have a list?
I have a list.
Yeah, we can.
Wait,
maybe
did you say do I have a lisp or a list?
Lisp.
Oh, I certainly do. No, certainly. Yeah. I had a list when I was a kid.
Master distractor.
I had a list of my lists.
So we can attach a list for you.
That is true. We could do that.
Does maltodextrose have gluten too? Jessica's asking.
Well, so that's a good question. Maltodextrin is sugar plus sugar plus sugar. So dextrose is sugar, maltose is sugar plus sugar. Now, theoretically, no. Dextrose is usually derived from either corn or wheat. So it might end up causing maybe some sensitivities in somebody if there's any kind of possibility of gluten in there at all. So usually if someone's celiac, you say stay away from that stuff. But usually, maltodextrin is just corn, genetically modified corn, or glutinous wheat.
Okay, so generally no.
Yeah, so probably not, but it's not a healthy thing at all.
Yeah. Thank you for all your questions. Thank you for all your comments and your laughter and your vulnerability.
What about juice? Is juice healthy?
Apple or apple juice? Apple or apple juice? What do you pick?
Apfelsprache good.
Yeah.
Yeah, which one? So, one of the things like we do at our clinic is we're pretty darn good at reversing type 2 diabetes. We actually reversed a type 1 diabetic, right? Which was pretty awesome to have a patient come in like that. But typically we get type 2 diabetes patients. And type 2 diabetes is absolutely diet-induced and diet-cured, right? But what's messed up is many of the people that go through these programs to reverse their diabetes really is just to maintain their diabetes. So you'll hear things like carbs a carb, so a brownie, broccoli, it's all the same, a carb's a carb. Or apple juice or apple, it's all the same thing. But like, what's your name? Holly.
Jennifer. Like
Holly was saying earlier, or Tiffany Knockoff, is that what we call it?
He never listens to
Tiffany
me.
Knockoff. So, what she was saying earlier was that, the fiber absorbs 80% of the sugar that's in the food. So if a diabetic is drinking orange juice, even regular people drinking orange juice, apple juice, pomegranate juice, it's just sugar. It's sugar with some vitamins, and that's it. So if you eat the real actual food, which I like Pandora's answer, which is apple and a glass of water, that's like the best.
I like Kendra's answer, duh, no juice. That's my favorite answer.
Well, we'll have to agree to disagree then.
I just like that she said duh.
Duh. All right.
So, yeah, so we can think about those choices.
Do you think she did sassy when she did? She was like, duh.
I was hoping so.
Whatever. Right?
Amy has a good question, and I want to tie in with that question. She says, is it okay to use juice as a base for a green smoothie? And I have a thought on that, too. So I'm going to guess your answer is probably no. But my thought is, what about juicing in general? If you're juicing the whole fruit, is it okay? Because you've got the fiber in there?
Well, that's puree.
If you're, pureeing, but like in a juicer, you put the whole thing in there.
So you put it in there, then the fiber goes over here and the juice comes out here. So it's just sugar.
Oh, okay. I just use a blender. So.
Yeah, so people make
I'm not fancy enough with a juicer.
They're just getting really expensive vitamins through their juice, which is it's just sugar with a lot of good vitamins in there. Okay. But, if you had something like diabetes, not diabetes, if you had cancer, hell yeah, you should be doing a lot of juice, like fresh squeezed juice. But
with the fiber.
But you should also then do purees, you should also do real food, all that kind of stuff. So you wouldn't want to do just carrot juice, you would want to eat a hell of a lot of carrots also. So, yeah, it's, most people think juice is the healthiest thing they're doing, but really, a lot of juices will have more sugar than a soda. Yeah. And so juice needs to be the worst thing you do. So then with Amy's question, which is a good question, is, yeah, you could probably do that, because you're going to put a lot of fiber in there anyways. So if you're putting lots of fruits and vegetables and greens, and that should absorb most of that sugar, and you should be fine. And I usually put a little bit of juice, like orange juice, and then I put the rest water. And then I'll take an orange that's organic and chop it up and put the peel in there too. And then, oh my gosh, you don't need all that juice in there. You just need a little bit, and it tastes incredible.
So you could use, Amy, you could use water as a base for your smoothie. I do. You could also use coconut milk if you don't want to use a juice. But I think what Dr. G was saying was that as long as you have enough greens, let's say, as a fiber, as long as you have enough fiber in your smoothie to balance out that simple sugar, then you should be okay.
I just use solid, honey. I don't use that much honey.
I don't put any sweetener in mine. I don't feel like I need it.
As far as extra? Mm-mm. Yeah. Do you do milk based or juice based?
The fruit is enough. Water. I do water based. Just half cup, half cup, half cup is an easy way to do it. If you want to add more greens, you can always add more greens. But half cup water, half cup greens, half cup blueberries. I like to add a couple of peaches, a couple of strawberries, so maybe there's a few more pieces of fruit in there for the sweetness, or a little piece of banana for the sweetness, but I don't add any sweetener beyond that.
Did you say pizza banana?
I always like to put pizza in my smoothies too. No, I didn't say pizza.
You said a pizza banana.
Piece.
Oh, piece of banana.
Piece of banana.
That makes a lot more sense. I thought maybe you're Italian.
Yeah, stereotypes are flying.
So, what take home would you like to copy of me this week?
Oh, here we go. Here we go. since Dr. G thinks
he's
the only one that has had an original thought in this world.
Let's do it this way. You do yours first, and then we'll see if it's original. Okay? You go first.
I'm going to do my normal one, which I actually said earlier. So, and this is mine, because I do it, and I'm not sure that you do it.
Take a bath? Use deodorant?
So, my takeaway with this, sugar is everywhere. Oh, I've got two takeaways. Sugar is everywhere. It is part of our society. It's part of our corporate culture. It's part of everywhere and everything. In America especially. So my first takeaway thought is, don't be afraid to do your own thing. Don't be afraid to march to the... Are you still there? So don't be afraid to march to the beat of your own drum against our sugar-laden society. That's my number one take-home. And then my second one is to start with attainable goals. Make your goals attainable so that you can be successful, and then over time you'll just keep adding to those goals. As you do make attainable goals, you can add on top of those. You don't have to do the whole thing all at once. So cutting out every single bit of sugar tomorrow might not work for you. So just think about that. It probably wouldn't work for most of us. So just take small goals, cut out soda to start, and then work your way through from there. Those are my two.
Well, I feel like sugar's like everywhere. And I feel like if people just like marched to their own drum, like just did their own thing and didn't care what corporate America thought, and just Bernie Sanders their way, and just eat what you want without sugar, regardless of what other people think. And I really think if they just started with smaller goals, just like attainable goals, I think it'd be easier.
That was so moving.
And marching to the beat of the drum. And smaller goals.
Sometimes it's okay to hate people.
I can't read what
sometimes.
Sugar-laden society.
I think you're jealous.
So
Jealousy.
I H2'd this one. What I did was
copying is the best form of flattery. That's what I say.
Flattery is when you take lard and make batter out of it.
Hey, we're almost 10 minutes over 8 o'clock.
Oh, okay.
So, thank you for joining us.
I gotta go watch Murder, She Wrote.
Yeah.
New episode.
Thank you for joining us. Keep posting questions. If you have more that we didn't answer, type those in. We'll get to the questions we didn't answer eventually.
And next week's talk is the bomb. The brown bomb.
The
with
brown
corn
bomb.
in it.
It's going to be delightfully comedic.
The brown... It's going to be so hard not to make jokes the whole time. The brown bomb is next week, which is what are we talking about? I don't even know.
I don't know. I don't know either. I don't know either.
So what's the title? We're going to talk about poop, right?
The title is called Your Poop and You, How to Make Friends with the Enemy.
Nice.
Thank you.
So, all those, when we see, I like Kinder's little sponsor. If you have poop questions that you've always wanted to ask in a public forum, next week's your time. If you want to see disgusting pictures, I might draw some too, and I'll probably do some like mandala coloring of some poop. And I'll probably use the beat of my own drum kind of yellow for the corn. I don't know.
He's never going to let me live this down.
So,
join us.
All right, then. Join us while we talk about crap.
All right.
All right? Poop is awesome.
Have a good week, everybody.
Bye, you guys. Don't touch that button.